Good afternoon, Africans. I am called Natamba Masiko Magundu. I'm a consultant on African culture, tradition, and spirituality. Today, I'm going to talk about mental health and nature. I will approach the two using spirituality. Many people do not understand the matters of spirituality, tradition. They confuse everything. We have seen a lot of love on mental health. We have seen a lot of treatment, which I think is a wrong treatment because we have ignored nature, because we have ignored spirituality. When you talk of nature, most people tend to confuse nature with nurture. Nature, N-A, nurture, N-U. Nature is the reality of creation by God. Anything existing, because nature starts with, biblically it starts with God's creation in Genesis. When God created everything and realized his art was lacking something, and then he brought us an element called human being. That is Adam and Eve, when we consider biblical line. So, human beings are also nature. By term them nature also, because they are creation. Since we are talking about nature and nurture, like I said, people confuse nature with nurture. Nurture is human creation. It's something created by human. Industrialization, the one putting on, this is not created by God, though the first products were nature, but these end products are nurture in you. Nurture. So, the whole world is confused in nurture. There is nothing like spirituality in nurture. Actually, nurture is related to witchcraft because it is human greed and human wisdom and human science that we see some part of spirituality being made by human being, and it comes out by human action, which goes to witchcraft. So I want you to differentiate nurture and nature. So we are talking about nature. Actually, mental health is brought by nature. Mental health is caused by nature, human creation. How? We have nature. God created us with trees, created us with lakes, created us with mountains, created us with the surroundings in our homesteads. But what have we contributed to nature? And what has nature contributed to us? That's where the problem is. When you understand nature and what it has contributed to you and what you have contributed to nature, then we come to the final end results of success, of development, of sickness. And when we mention sickness, then we come to mental health. We have disorders. We have spiritually, actually, most of the people, most of the youth, if you make research, people who are suffering from, I haven't seen all the people suffering from mental health like youth. And most especially the current trend of mental health patients, they are youth in the gap of 10 years, kids, because 10-year kid, you can't call him a youth, but I term them to be going to the level of the old people. But okay, 16 years to 25. If you go to institutions that are rehabilitation centers, you find there are young people suffering from mental disorders and mental related diseases. Kings were a gap of communication of their communities to God. You go back to Moses, you go back to King David, you go back to Abraham. God used to communicate to kings to pass his message to his people. But after colonization, our kings were demonized and they are what we call witch. They are what we call, depending on colonization strategy and the education they are teaching our kids. So, why did I give you that history? Because where I'm heading to, I want you to relate it with the history of kings and spirituality. And how does all this now bring mental disorders and mental health? We are suffering mentally because we disowned our ancestors. Most of the mental cases are issues concerning spirituality. Have you heard of Omuzimu? What they call souls? The Wazungu call it souls. And we, the brainwashed Africans, in my language we call it Omuzimu. When you mention the word Omuzimu, people will run away because they think Omuzimu is Satan. Omuzimu is a soul that lives with a human being, both dead and alive. Whether dead, whether alive, all of us have a Muzimu. But how does a Muzimu become Satan? We are on nature. Because I told you, human creation is also nature. You know, when you mention nature, people tend to think of grasses, of grass. People tend to think of mountains. Tend to think of lakes. What? I told you, nature is God creation, and nature is human creation. Since man was created by God, is also nature. And how does that relate to mental health? I will give you an example. A family head, a man, because you always, in African tradition, a man is the one who is a family head. They always make wills when they grow old and they leave their wills. This land should never be sold. This land, I've given it to this, they make petitions and make wills and they keep them. After making that will and the elder dies, your father dies, now you, the sons and daughters of the dead, decide against the will he made. Guess what will happen? Mental disorder, mental health, mental spiritual confusion. There, Omuzimu, what was the other soul of the dead, your father, after you selling the land, and in his will he said, never sell this land. Believe me, he will come back. Your father will come back. He will come back in your head, in your body. He will possess you. Most especially you, the one who they left, who inherited your father, who agreed that his land should be sold. You will be possessed by the other spirit of the dead. Guess what happens? Mental disorder. Because he will be demanding, why did you sell my land? I left when I had said you should never sell my land. And now the one who inherited the father is sick. The whole family, people are sick. Now that's where we go to colonial institutions, religion. People go to churches, and when they tap on you, by the way, the spirit will speak. I told my son never to sell my land. Why did he sell it? Now they say it is a Muzimu. Surely, how satanic is somebody who comes to claim something he left, never sell this, and actually never sell this is protection of the future of his descendants. So for you sell it, and somebody comes back and is asking for, why did you sell it? And you call that one satanic? That is punishment. That is God's punishment, by the way. It is actually godly related, but people call it witchcraft. People call it, I don't know, any name. What do you term as Satan? Now, that is one element of nature causing mental illness. Because when that soul comes into you, it will traumatize somebody. The levels of understanding will disappear because the brains are already traumatized. And the end results, when you go to the church, they will pray and the Muslim will keep around. You will go here and there, but because the colonial churches do not have the level of spirituality of negotiating with the spirit of the dead, because they are not traditional. And what happens when he fails church? Because some of the souls, some of the people die when they are saved in the colonial systems. And when the soul comes back demanding to recorrect what everything went wrong, and they go to the church, that soul can be able to listen. Because it belongs to the church, it goes. And here comes the praising of the church and everything, because they have prayed for somebody and the demon has gone. They call it a demon. No, it is your father, but spiritually. Is the one hunting you because of what you did wrong against his will. But those who fail, for example, I should not give an example. Anyway, for example, me, I believe in God, but I don't believe in religion. Issues concerning colonial religion. I believe in God. Spiritually, I believe traditionally. If I die, and my sons and daughters and whoever can be there is against my will, you can't take me to church and things work out. Because I did not believe in church, it can't work out. They have got to take me traditional to negotiate with my spirit for me to bow down and accept, okay, you made this wrong, okay, I've forgiven you, may you prosper. But what happens when such souls fail in churches? They are taken to Butabika, they are taken to rehabilitation centers, and they are termed mental illness and mental health problems. And we have very many there in the public that have failed. Somebody spends 2 years in Butabika, 10 years in Butabika, when he's haunted by his father who died, when he's haunted by a different spirit through witchcraft now. Because witchcraft is there. People, Balogo are there. The witch are there. Somebody can use the spirit of the dead and he sends it to somebody he doesn't like to haunt him. But because we don't understand the science in Africa, the spiritual science in Africa, because our spiritual strength in Africa was buried in colonial regions, that is how we have failed to understand mental health and nature. Another example of mental health. When God created his art craft, when he created everything, he brought man to look against nature, the fellow nature. So why you, man, destroy nature, and where do you think you're heading to? You're heading to self-destruction. Because when you destroy nature, that's when you see global warming, that's when you see desertification, that's when you see issues concerning GMOs coming up, genetically modified organisms. Because now you are on nature, human creation, nature. We have gone against our nature. We have gone against what God blessed us with. You find somebody is having his exotic breeds, local breeds, and he takes them away because of human greed, because of modernization. I'm not saying we should not develop, no, but we should sit down and design systems of development. I will give you an example, and this should be made, those who make research, you go back to a certain region and make that research. You'll find out how nature contributes to mental health disorders, mental health illness. I want to use an example of Western Uganda and the cattle keepers. We all understand the longhorned cattle, nature, came with the system of Chwezi. I won't fear mentioning the word Chwezi because it is the system that is not understood. Chwezi do not like alcohol, Chwezi do not like jealous, Chwezi like peace, development, and divination. So, how do you tell me something Satan? Chwezi do not like prostitution. They want you peacefully, developed, and in harmony. So how do you tell me such a spirit is satanic? Which is against things that are looking satanic, things that are wrong, negative. So, Western Uganda, I want you people to make research. Those who had long-horned cattle and disowned them, disowned their own tradition and nature, brought what we call nature, because these were not made for us. They are the white and black cows from Europe, which were made genetically. Because they go into the lab, mix genes, and come up with something. The cows that can produce even 20 liters or even 40 in a day, one cow like this, where is it coming from? genetically modified organisms. So those who had long-horned cattle and disowned them, each family has issues of mental disorder and issues of spirituality in that family. You'll find either the last born or any of the kids in that family having an issue of mental disorder or mentally he's ill. And you know what happens? The ancestral spirit, God, is trying to open your eyes that you have disowned nature, you have disowned what I blessed you with, and because of human greed, you are running for what you don't know. So let me punish you until when you can understand. I am a living example of that system. A living example of that system. My father was one of the best farmers in Western Uganda. He actually was even the chairman, is it UNIFA? Uganda, Uganda, Western Uganda Farmers Association. Sometime back, 1994, there. So in my area, my father was the first to bring those cows, white and black cows, Frisian cows. That was 1991. We developed and milk was there, but guess what? By 1998, those cows had started dying like flies, given poison on a meat. You know, when you get poison and you put it on the meat, and flies sip it, then they die. That's how now cows had started dying. I remember my father seated on his local seat, watching how the villagers were slaughtering the cows that are already dead. Because they die, they could die like in a day, they die because of tick, because of their disease. You know, once you bring nature in your home, then it has an expense. Because those Frisian cows, you have to use the medicine made by the whites, made by Monsanto, made by, that is the system designed for you to spend, and then you still feed the colonial masters. Because our local cows, the long-horned ones, there's no expense you give them except grazing them. And they give you conch milk. 1 cup of a long-horned cattle, you can put 2 cups of water and you still take milk. But you put 2 cups of water in the one of Frisian, you see. So that is how mentally we have gotten ill. That is how nature has made us get ill. How does nature contribute to illness? In another example. For example, if I consider the cows, that Frisian cow is every week sprayed with chemicals. Every week given medicine, it swallows it. You spray the medicine and you still give it and it swallows it. And the end results are you take the milk that is contaminated with pesticides and so on. And that will result into cancer. That will result into genetic deformation of a human being. And you find people don't think well. People, the level of IQ, the level of intellect is down because of how you disorganized your nature. And mental illness results from such kind of issues. Nature, how does nature contribute to mental illness? Now I go back to the lakes, I go back to the trees, I go back to the surrounding at home. I go back to domestic animals, dogs, chicken. Most of the cats, most of those animals are gifted spiritually. And we have disowned nature again that is around us. We want to live in storage buildings, but they contribute much on us. Why are they using dogs, sniffer dogs in security? And what do you think is special about them that is not in man to be used to do the sniffing? That is nature. We have disowned nature. The dog, when when you are at home, the drunkards, and you come late at night, a dog will recognize you a mile away, that the owner is coming. But a mile away, when somebody who is not an insider comes, the dog will start barking. Nature, spirituality. So when you disown everything away from yourself, then you don't have messengers of God. Dogs are messengers of God. Somebody is going to be like, oh, now what is that? No, he created it to give the surrounding security at home. Let us go to birds, the wild birds. All of them have their roles to you. Let us go to the lakes. This lake you see, in my tradition, we have, actually in Uganda they call it Mukasa, but in my tradition we call it Mugasha. These lakes have the spirit. Actually, I want us to ask ourselves a question about Lake Victoria, because before whites were here, it was called Narubare. The Narubare, the Na, in Uganda, Na, Narubare, Narongo, Na is something bigger. So Na, something big. Rubare is God. It's not witchcraft like you think. No. Rubare is God. So Na, Rubare, God, the overseer. So I believe our ancestors who lived before, Narubare, if you visit Genesis chapter 2, verse 10, it reads the rivers that flows into the Garden of Eden and water out into four, split into four. And when you read those verses, Genesis chapter 2, verse 10, they will explain where God's creation took place and where the Garden of Eden was. It was in East Africa. Because it mentions about river Gihon, it mentions about river Pishon. And when you see those rivers, when you come to see them, one is in Cush, one is in the country of Havira, another one is in Assyria. And when you see current day rivers, that is River Nile, River Congo, and the two rivers that are after Red Sea. And Red Sea, when you read the maps before the white spirit, they did that canal, the Suez Canal, before it was on, that one was Africa. Actually, where Israel is, where the Syria is, those are borders, bordering Asia. Of borders of Africa bordering Asia. But because they created that canal in that is 1825, I don't remember where the year, that the whites created it and chopped off the other two rivers that are mentioned in Genesis chapter 2, verse 10, and they are in Syria and actually Iraq, Syria and Israel. But all that was Africa. So Africa was gifted spiritually. Africa was gifted even in creation. So what am I coming to? Since the Garden of Eden was in the East Africa, even science, when I go back to science, it explains where the human generation started from East Africa. With the Homo sapiens and the Homo sapien Neanderthalensis, 4,000 something millions years back. I don't know the years well. But when you research, you find out that. So, since the Garden of Eden was in East Africa, and the Lake Victoria is called Narubare, meaning that lake was named before God after his creation. You are going to be confused, but you accept the reality of African tradition, spirituality versus mental health. We are mentally ill because we disowned our tradition, because we disowned our history, because we disowned our spiritual systems. Tradition is us. Tradition is nature. When you don't embrace nature, then you have gone a wrong way. And no one should tell you that nature is demonized, because we have kind of like, because of European spiritual institutionalization, we have failed to understand our own and what is not ours. If I may ask whoever It's online, listening, viewing. What do you understand by the term Satan? In your language, is it there? Satan is English. What is Satan in your language? Because in my language, I don't understand what Satan is. In my language, I can't mention that Satan is this. Because I would have said Satan is Omuzimu, but then that means myself I'm Satan. Because the soul is living in me, Omuzimu is in me. So there's nothing like Satan. There are words that were created to make you disappear from your own. Satan, hell, and heaven. Who has ever gone to hell and comes back and tells you, there was hell? Who has ever gone to heaven and tells you there was heaven? Actually, the ones who tell you about hell and heaven, when they are burying you, they say sand to sand and soil to soil. Why are they not saying heaven, the body to sand and soul to heaven? They don't say that. Yet the soul is what is key. But they say sand to sand, bury the fool and the... That's soul. Sand to sand. Why are they not saying body to sand? Because God, when God was creating us, he said, I have made man from clay and sand. Why then the soul was from God? If you say heaven, God is in heaven, why can't you, when you're burying somebody, say body to sand and then soul to heaven? Why do you say sand, and soil to soil? Meaning, the issue, the analogy, the hoax of hell and heaven was there to only instill fear in an African man, to only instill you get, actually all of us are mentally sick because we are working for heaven, not working for self-development. All Africans work for heaven. You find somebody all his life is working for heaven. The heaven you don't know. Why work for what you don't know? Why can't you work for your kids at home who are yawning with hunger? And why can't you work for your family? Why can't you embark on nature? God, by the way, God created us with everything. Stop disturbing God. The medicine to mental illness is nature. If we don't embrace nature, then accept that we shall have many people in Botabika, we shall have many people in rehabilitation centers, and they are yet to multiply because we have not embraced nature. Because the enemy, the oppressor, the colonial master understood that nature is very key to an African person and has destroyed it. I won't fear say this. I won't fear say this. Our main forests in the country are gone. Our wetlands are gone, and all that is nature. And let me tell you now, in divination, the spiritual timeline we have, because I believe in tradition, not witchcraft. Because witchcraft, actually, if I'm to explain to you about levels of before I put the point that I was coming in, let me first explain to you mentally how people are getting off, how people are getting ill using witchcraft, because I understand witchcraft. Before I discovered myself, I was into those people who practice witchcraft, trying to understand my life, because my life was totally in disorganization. I had achieved some level of development. It all disappeared for an issue I can't explain now, because I have a very interesting lifestyle. When life became a problem to me, now I started looking for spiritual healing. I was mentally ill. I visited all witches around Kampala in Uganda. They did nothing, but they used the spirit of the dead. Their grandfathers, their fathers who died. They evoke the spirits and they possess them, and they start seeing the future and what happened in the past. Those which can see, they can see, but the hearing is zero. Some can see, and actually when the issue is not that much, for example, you must have an issue of a demon or the soul that came back and is haunting you. When you go to a witch doctor, Issues concerning souls and my father died and is haunting me, they are simple because he can be able to negotiate with that soul and they save you. But there are issues called Emmanuel. Those are the small gods now they used to mention. When they used to mention a small god, now you term the whole of African art and tradition and blessings small gods. No. Today, I want you to understand what the small gods are. When God created us, he created us in two sectors of tribes and clans. Everyone living in this world has a clan. You have a clan, I have a clan. And whichever clan you belong to has a small god, has a spirit, which when I am explaining, there is a book I'm going to put online and start giving to you people, explaining the spiritual modes to God. I have 5 levels of spirituality. I have the soul, I have the small gods, the mandwa, I have the guardian angels. Those, they are the souls which, the guardian angels are the souls that were holy, that turned to be, they were human beings that were holy, that turned to be, that were being used by God's Spirit, turned to be holy and angels. I give an example of Jesus. You are Jesus. Because Jesus was a soul for the Jews and the Israelites, not for Africans. Because Africans, we had our own kings also who were there for us. We had the likes of King Solomon. Now I'm talking that by Birka, so you can understand me. Because when I say Shaka Zulu, now you make it satanic. Yet Shaka Zulu was a king communicating to God for his people. Same like Abraham, same like David. But because of mental illness, because of European colonial spiritual institutionalization, our kings were termed to be satanic. So, small gods are the spiritual medium at the level of the clan. Each clan has its spirit they believe in. And those spirits tend to ask for sacrifices. Before colonization, they were not. They were having sacrifices at the level of clans. The clan head would come and you sacrifice a cow or a goat, and God answers your prayers. But because of colonization, all that was dismantled. And guess what? People started practicing spirituality in their homes. A goat that was being offered by a group of 4,000 people, a clan of 4,000 people, is now offered by an individual monthly. And how are you going to afford sacrificing a cow monthly? That means the goats and the chicken are going to be finished, and that manwa, that small god, will also claim your souls. It will claim your kids. It will claim your partners. And they will die because you have practiced spirituality in a wrong way. That is the level of spirituality. So those small gods were not there purposely to hunt us. They are the angels for our clans that connect us to the guardian angels. But when you practice them badly, they hunt you. That's when you find yourself going to witch doctors, find yourself going to churches, and things fail. And then mentally, you are ill because of disorganization at the clan level. You even don't know your clan. The current crop of young people don't know their clans. It's useless. Yes, it is very key in your development. So, have you seen how that level has contributed to spirituality? Mental illness? Because you have disowned a certain level of spirituality which you don't understand, you are being haunted. You are being disorganized. So we need to understand spirituality and how it relates to us. So what am I going to talk about before I came to the level of the small gods and everything? We have destroyed nature. You go to Budongo. Budongo forest is being taken away. I pity the are they Banyoro? I think Bunyoro. I pity them. All that is nature. All those are blessings being taken into sugar. I even wonder how sugar contributes to how sugar contributes to your life expectancy and the continuation of your life by sugar. You depend on sugar and you add more years, or you depend on that forest and add more years. It is in that forest that there is medicine which you can't find in the hospitals, medicine which you can't find in Botabika, in that forest, Budongo forest. But it is getting cleared because of sugar. Now, it is getting cleared into nature. Now, nature activities are taking place, destroying nature activities. Why can't you get sick of mental disorders? Why can't you have mental health? For if they are destroying the forest, and you are 50 miles away from the forest, you might think that it cannot affect you. You are going to get unprepared seasonal rains. And how are you going to grow? Agriculture. Agriculture is going to be destroyed in that area, because the rains which you are receiving at this time are going to change, or they will not come. And that is nature. You are destroying nature. I want us to understand nature and spirituality. We have confused many issues concerning nature and spirituality. If you don't have nature, you are not existing. What is nature in man? Nature in man is when your mother and your father sleeps and produce you. That is that process is nature. They are doing creation. And when they produce you and you are against them, the spirit, God will, God power that accept that you should be created through sex is the same that is going to hunt you after you are against your first God, father and mother. You will be mentally ill. There is no one in this world, there is no one who can be against his father and mother and can live successfully. Even if you live successfully, your daughters and your sons and your grandsons, they will face the problem. They will face the torture for what you did. Some of us are suffering from the mistakes of our ancestors, the mistakes of our grandfathers. The next recording, I want to record about my life and how it has been since childhood and where I am. That interview, it will be, you won't believe it. Because I have suffered part of my life. Have suffered like for 15 years, suffering what happened on my fourth generational grandfather, which I didn't know, which I was revealed to me by nature. But after undoing it and getting to the right line, things are now going the right way. Things are going okay for me. So, I am not trashing your religion, because it is not you who put yourself there. I'm not trashing what you believe in. But you understand where you come from, understand your tradition and nature, then you keep in your religions. Because once you understand your ancestral spirits, and you understand which kind of clan spirit that you are belonging to, which kind of guardian angel you have, which kind of archangel you have, then why not keep in your churches? Because already you understand the spiritual modium, and you understand that the church I am in is the root cause of my problems. Then you will go there to change the church itself. I want us to understand all that, and all that has been my story about nature, that has been my story about mental health, and I want to thank you for listening to me. Once again, I'm Natamba Masiko Magundu. I thank you very much. There are more episodes going to come, and that is the food of thought for today. Thank you, and bye-bye.